Okay. So hello everyone and welcome to Computer Sciences. My name is Kimi. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll be the host for today's panel. I would like to begin by gratefully acknowledging that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We'll start today by a quick introduction from our amazing group of mentors, followed by a hosted discussion. If you have any questions for the mentors, please feel free to put them in the chat at any time. So our technician today is Dawn, who will be monitoring the chat. If you have any technical issues, they would be happy to assist. We do ask that you keep comments in the chat and question section respectful and relevant to the topics being discussed. So now it's time to meet our mentors who you see on the screen. Let's start by going around and doing a brief introduction before we jump into the questions. So can each of you let me know your name, your job title, and the thing that you love most about your career? Millie, do you want to start maybe?
Sure. Hi, sorry. Millie, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Millie, and I work at SAP as a data scientist. The most interesting about my job, I think, I'm going to suspect most of you have not heard of this field, data science. It's because it's relatively new. And so I think that's what's so exciting about my job, that my field is making a lot of advancements. There are a lot of exciting things happening all the time. Thank you.
Amazing. Melanie, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Our names are close together. I'm Melanie Massell. I'm a core solution engineer for Salesforce in Canada. And I think the most interesting part of my job is that I get to work with large and small companies all around Canada to help them with their customer relationship management, which is essentially how they engage with customers through maybe you've bought something online or you've called a support center to get help with a product that you've purchased. That's customer relationship management, and that's what Salesforce builds.
Amazing. Morgan, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I'm Morgan. I'm currently a biomedical engineering student. I also work for Ryerson University's Digital Media Experience Lab. So I do everything from teaching coding, a bunch of different languages, to working on 3D printers. And I'd say the coolest thing about my job is that I get to do a little bit of everything, from the programming side to actually seeing my programming come to life in different applications like the printers and laser cutters and stuff, and getting to teach that. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Like your name. I like that joke. Sorry. And I know we actually had this discussion before we started recording, but where is everyone joining us from? I am in Vancouver by Science World. Where are all you from?
I am also in Vancouver.
And I'm just outside of Toronto, Ontario.
And I'm in Toronto, Ontario.
Perfect. So we have quite the wide range across Canada, which is really exciting. And one of the great reasons when we have these online conferences. So let's start getting into some of these questions. How did you get started in your career? If you were sort of thinking back to what really prompted you to go into the field that you're in right now. Morgan, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess what got me really interested in what I'm doing now is I've always been a very hands-on person and interested in all sorts of things from the time I was young that really have to do with STEM and just very much getting my hands dirty. So I guess that's what kind of attracted me to the kind of science type things, but I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do. What I found most helpful for me was just trying a lot of different things. And that kind of led me to the degree that I'm pursuing now and my job. Both allow me to explore a lot of different fields in one, as well as, teach that, which I really liked as well.
Amazing. That's really cool. Let's go backwards. Melanie?
Sure. So when I was younger, I was really good at math when I was in high school. And I thought a career in math would be smart. So I ended up wanting to be a math teacher when I started. And I was in a co-op program at the University of Waterloo. And when I started working in co-op, I got to try different jobs. And I learned, hey, you can do a lot of different cool things with a math background. So I ended up not being a teacher and going into a completely different field, which is where I am now. But still has some of the elements of teaching because I get to stand up in front of rooms of customers and present technology. So it's still very related, but not actually a teacher.
Millie?
Yeah, and as for me, so I was actually way more interested in language arts when I was young. And so my first degree was actually English literature. And
Wow.
then I was a journalist for many years. And then I started getting more interested in linguistics itself. And it was during this time that I took an introductory course on computational linguistics at UBC. And so this course was really geared toward linguists who have had no coding background whatsoever. And so with this course, it kind of introduced me to my current field. It's data science, but I specialize in computational linguistics, and here I am today.
Amazing. So you've all had quite the journeys getting to where you are today. That's really incredible and amazing to hear. What is your favorite part of your job as it stands right now? And I'll put that out to anyone who feels like answering first.
I guess I could answer first. So favorite thing about my job is getting to probably do a lot of different projects that involve both programming and a little bit of robotics, I guess. But what I love most is that I get to put these projects together and then actually teach them afterwards, which I think is really interesting, seeing kind of the work you're doing translate into also somebody else's knowledge gain it, and they get to have those kind of hands-on skills as well. So that's probably a favorite part about my job.
Amazing. That's really cool. Anyone else ready to answer?
Sure. For me, it's like the constant innovation of technology. So you've got to have this mindset where you're always interested in learning something new. And when you work in information technology, there's always something new to learn. New technology like the data science coming out, or new devices that you need to support customers running on. There's always something new. So I think it's that constant learning and opportunity to find out new things.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo what Morgan and Melanie both said. For myself, it's also the fact that I, take what I already know, the skills that I've gained, and the knowledge that I already have, and then putting it to practical use. So seeing it really come to realization and solving practical problems. I really, really like that aspect of my job. I find it very fulfilling. On top of that, like Melanie mentioned, data science and information technology in general is always progressing at such a rapid rate that I'm constantly learning to have to be able to keep up with my field and kind of stay relevant, and I really enjoy that part as well.
Wow. Wow. So the next question I have is, what skills do you think will help you most in your career, but with a bit of a spin on it? Because obviously everyone has a university degree or some sort of experience, but I'm wondering what other skills outside of your university degree you rely on in your job today. I guess my question is like, do you need to be organized? Do you need to retain detail? Do you need to be able to calculate a bill on demand at your table? Do you know what I'm saying? Like what else could people, what other skills could kids or people, whoever's watching this, would they find valuable in your field?
So I can answer this first. So I actually make a surprising amount of presentations to people with no data science background. So I think presentation skills, communication skills really is very, very top for me, in addition to the technical skills that we have. And so in terms of communication specifically, it's the ability to explain complicated things to people without this background in a way that anyone can understand. So I would say those for me and my job are really important.
Good answer. Great answer.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing in my role. Like, I think that's a big part of it, is being able to communicate, either written or verbal or presenting, and presentation skills are important as well in what I do. But I also think, one of the skills that's really important is being able to analyze things. So in some cases, working with our clients, we have to go in front of the customer, figure out their current scenario, what their business challenges are, what their industry challenges are, and then analyze that information to come up with, what do we think we can offer them to assist them with meeting their goals. And so a lot of that is not necessarily math or computer science. It's just using your math and computer science and your analytical skills to figure out how to solve that problem.
Totally. I definitely echo the communication thing. I mean, my role's a little bit different in that it's more of a teaching role as well. But just generally speaking, on the technical side of things, communication is such a huge thing. And that's not something you can really learn through a degree or even an online course. That's just go out and talk to people, practice, like Millie said, your presentation skills, practice, like when we say presentation skills, we don't just mean making a PowerPoint. We mean, okay, like explain this idea, and be able to take feedback. I think is another really big thing in our field. Is you're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to not know how to do things. You're going to try doing something the first time, and you're going to fail, and that's okay. But being able to get back up and also taking constructive criticism really well, that's going to help you grow and become better in this field as well.
Wow.
And I think a big one for my job and field, because it's very interdisciplinary, I'd say, is just being curious and having a learning mindset and a growth mindset. So what I mean by that is, constantly be trying new things, be curious about things that maybe make you uncomfortable, maybe think, why does this topic make me uncomfortable? Am I not confident in it? How can I become confident in it? That sort of thing. So just being curious and really trying to learn as many things as you can, because that'll help you no matter where you are, STEM or otherwise. Just having that open mindset and being a quick learner, because the more you learn, the better you get at it, the better you get at whatever situation you're put into. So that's, I think, the biggest things for what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, no, those are all great answers, and gives us all sort of more breadth to what you guys do and what skills are important in the field that you're in. So what is something about your industry that surprised you when you started?
I could probably jump on this one first. So what surprised me was when I looked at all these different technologies, and even a skill like programming, like 5 years ago, I would have never touched programming, in all honesty. I thought it was something totally out of my realm of understanding, and just didn't really understand it, didn't want to approach it. And same thing for even like robotics topics. I was very intimidated by them. And then I think like the most surprising thing for me was that once I actually tried these things, it's not as hard as people think. I think it's very much made out to be a super difficult thing, like anything to do with STEM. It's like very like prestigious or whatever. But honestly, it's not as hard as people think if you're willing to put in the time and you're passionate about it. If you think it's something you might be interested in, just try it, because I felt like I thought it was going to be so difficult and I would never be able to understand this. And I'm telling you, if you put in the time and effort, you will be able to, and it's not as difficult as people think it is. Not to discount it, but don't let the difficulty shy away from it, I guess.
That's a great answer. So be okay to fail, and it's going to be difficult, but you can still do it. That's a great answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Who wants to follow that one up?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So I think when I first started my career, there's just a lot to learn in information technology. It could be anything from analytics tools to databases to programming languages to all these different types of things. And I think for me, the most surprising thing was just how much is actually out there. And when you work for a large organization like I have in my past, they're willing to let you learn different things. So if you spend a few years learning about, let's say, databases, where I started my career, and then I moved into application development, and I moved into analytics, and I moved into all these different types of areas. And then in my current job, I work in CRM. So it's another information technology category that I'd never worked in before. So you find as your career grows over years and years, you build on that knowledge, and it becomes more and more beneficial to an employer, because you've got all that different skill set and background that they can leverage to help them within their business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for myself, I'm going to add to what Morgan was mentioning. So, I mentioned a little bit earlier that I didn't really start coding until that very first computational linguistics class. So that was just back in 2019. So prior to that, I really had no coding experience. I also, in my youth, didn't think I would be coding at all. And, I was very focused on, handwritten, writing more than anything. But yeah, I think coding is definitely something that is quite achievable. You just
Mhm.
have to put in the time like anything else. And having a linguist background, coding really is just another language that you have to learn. So
That's a
you know
great way to look at it. That's
and
amazing.
so many people are bilingual or multilingual these days that really is just another language.
That's a great way to look at it. And so much positive reinforcement. Like, you can do it, you guys. You guys got to try it. On the heels of that, I have a question of, obviously we're in the pandemic right now, and it's, no one was expecting it. I'm wondering how technology, how has it changed your fields? Not that we're all working from home and we're all wearing masks, but how have you seen in your fields how technology has shifted because of the pandemic, and how do you see it going forward? Like, what are the big changes that you see coming? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think for us, I can start with that one. And I
Yeah.
think for us, our customers came to us with different business problems. So, for example, retail stores that may not have had a great online presence before, they had to completely remodel how they were going to engage and sell to customers. So, I think that's a huge shift in the industry in general, that more companies are realizing they need to have some kind of online presence. They need to be able to engage with customers through a digital experience and a digital channel. And they might not have had that before. But I think for us, it's also there's an element that the pandemic has caused in that we can still meet like we are now virtually, which is
Mm,
great. And I'm very fortunate that we had all of our technology where I work set up to do that.
yes.
And we have a policy of work from anywhere. But some companies do not, right? That was a big shift for people to be able to work online with us. But also, there's a bit of the personal element that changes. So when you're used to working with customers in a room and drawing on a whiteboard their challenges, and all of a sudden you have to flip to being able to be virtual with them, it's very difficult. So you lose a bit of that interpersonal element, and hopefully we can get back to all working together, to some extent in the same room,
Mhm.
because you certainly lose that ability to create relationships.
I agree. I agree. Morgan, Millie, what about you guys? What do you guys think?
Well, to tell you the truth, so I graduated in 2020 in pandemic, peak pandemic times. So I started working
Mhm.
remote, and so I can't really tell you what the difference is, pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. I'm still in the pandemic as we
Totally
speak.
valid.
Yeah, I don't have that much to add.
But that's still a really interesting viewpoint because
Mhm.
you're in it. I also got hired during the pandemic, and I don't know anything other than what I know. Whereas other people have more context from before pandemic, whereas I'm only during pandemic. So I understand. Morgan, what about you?
Yeah, so I guess piggybacking off of what Melanie said, so I've kind of had both experiences. The job I'm currently working now part time is, full year job, and so I started that in 2019, which was, before the pandemic. We were totally in person. There was no work from home at all. I mean, obviously we're a lab, we're in person, we're providing in person services for students, in person teaching, guest lecturing,
Mhm.
that sort of stuff. So there wasn't really any need to be virtual, nor did
Mhm.
we have the platforms in place to be able to be virtual at all. And then once the pandemic hit, all of a sudden we had to figure out how to run the 3D printing lab and the laser cutters, and also now this whole element of teaching as well. Again, it's a really weird job, but um, we had to transition everything to online when we had no basis. So I guess that was like a really huge hurdle to overcome with the pandemic. And I mean, Salesforce probably we can thank for a couple solutions that we helped put into place. But yeah, so just making that transition from a fully in-person type field that we never thought we would be able to provide the services we provide in a fully online model. But here we are providing like contactless 3D printing services instead of our typical self-serve, for example. We never thought that that would be possible, never even considered it. And now we're running that, right? So I guess the pandemic really has just forced technologies to move into the future, if you will, in some topics. And then also that relationship aspect. So like I mentioned, like I've worked a couple of different jobs over the pandemic. One of them, I was hired during the pandemic. And I can tell you the relationships, even just internal, not external with customers and stuff, but even just internally and building those relationships with your coworkers is much more difficult coming on as a new staff during the pandemic than it is already having that established environment, those established relationships with people, and then just transitioning to that online, because you hop on with someone, it doesn't matter if their camera's off or whatever, like you already know what they look like, you know how they sound, you know everything about them, you know what they look like below their neck, so but it's really interesting switching to only ever meeting people online. It's a lot more difficult to make those relationships. So yeah, totally agree with Melanie on that side from like an internal standpoint as well. So making that switch is both forces things to go into the future, but also kind of makes us take a step back on the human aspect of things as well.
Absolutely. No, I think all three perspectives are totally valid and really interesting, because it really sort of shows when you entered the workforce. And same with me, like I said before, I sort of entered mid-pandemic. So I also have the context of, it's always been like this. What are you talking about? So, but yeah, I especially wondered how it would change all of your fields in technology and computer sciences. But moving away from that, before we went live, I did ask all of our mentors, what advice would they give to a 14-year-old who is interested in your line of work? And so that could be maybe advice back to themselves when they were 14, or to a 14-year-old now, or anybody who's watching, really. So again, what advice would you give to a 14-year-old who is interested in your line of work? Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Yeah. So data science, this line of work, really, there are like a few pillars. So there is the math side, there is the coding side, and there's kind of a machine learning side, or if you want to go into computational linguistics, then linguistics would also help. And so these are kind of the core areas. Like if I had known that I was going to go into data science when I was 14, then I would have really, really focused on the coding and picked it up earlier. Things are just easier when you're younger and more of a sponge that you can learn all these new things. It's never too late though, obviously. But yeah, definitely, I think for me, if I was to talk to my 14-year-old self, I would say, hey, focus on math and coding, programming, and not so much machine learning, but because of my personal interest, linguistics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say for me, like I have a 15-year-old son. So if I were to give him advice, it's obviously, focus on your schooling, make sure that you stay in school, that you try to do the best that you can. But, you don't need to have a 99% necessarily to be good at your job. And in fact, one of the greatest things I learned working in information technology early on in my career is some people that I worked with didn't even have a math or computer science or computer engineering or engineering degree. They were just somebody that loved it. So be passionate about what you want to do in your career, and it will take you everywhere you want to go. So if you're just somebody that loves writing code and you just want to do it, but you end up not getting a degree in that field and you change your mind completely after your degree is over, that's okay. As long as you're passionate and you love what that is and you love what you're doing, you can still find a very rewarding and career progressing job.
I love that advice. That's great advice. Morgan, what do you think?
Totally agree with Melanie and Millie. What it depends on exactly what you're interested in, but I guess just look up, if you liked your biology class dissection or something, then maybe take a look at what you could be learning for that. If you looked at a circuit or something, or you're interested in how does my toaster work? How does that work? Maybe, you should take a look at electrical engineering, or if you look at a robot and you're like, wow, that's super cool, I want to do that. Maybe look at programming and robotics. So I guess just being in tune to what kind of interests you, even if these are things in school, like what interests you. And based on that, if there's clubs you can join at school, that's an awesome way to try new things. And on the topic of clubs, if you're a young girl, do not be afraid to join an all-boys club. I made that mistake on several occasions and missed out on so many great opportunities. And then I came to university and finally broke this, boys club thing. And now I'm so glad that I finally just joined a team, it was pretty much all men. And they were awesome. They weren't scary. Like it was really great. And so I guess if I were to tell my 14-year-old self that, might make me feel a little bit better about joining these teams, because it can be pretty intimidating. If there's no other girls on the team, especially as a young girl, you might not feel like you fit in. You fit in. You belong there. If you're interested in it, you belong there. And if anyone hassles you, then say something about it if you can and you feel safe doing so, because you do belong there if that's something you're interested in, you want to try, for sure.
You heard it here first. You do belong there. So, how do I even follow that up? That's great. Yeah, you do belong there. We all do. Absolutely. So I guess another question and you sort of touched on it already, is what are some resources that people, if someone was interested in going through this, if they're in high school, if they wanted to get into your field, what resources do you think that they could access to help them learn more if it was a right fit for them? You said clubs, and I completely agree. Are there any other resources that you guys could think about that, say, a high schooler could access?
Yeah, for us at Salesforce, you'll notice I'm wearing a Trailblazer sweater.
Mm-hmm.
All of our people that learn our platform and promote Salesforce and change in their organizations, change for the better, we call them Trailblazers. And anybody can go and learn Salesforce or learn customer relationship management by going to our Trailhead platform, which is a free platform. You can go out there and learn anything you want to know about our solutions, about CRM, about different aspects of our solutions. So feel free to go out there and sign up and try it. And that's how we all learn Salesforce. Myself, administrators, people that work in companies on Salesforce, that's how we've all learned the platform. So definitely take advantage of that.
I might make a note of that, actually. That's really interesting, and I didn't know that. Yeah, anybody else? Resources?
Yeah, I'm just going to add to what Melanie said. So, in addition to Salesforce, SAP, Microsoft, IBM, they all have these open learning platforms that are free. And so, yeah, in addition to some of the really popular, MOOCs that are out there, like edX. So I think those are great resources. They're very low cost for you to kind of get a basic understanding of any field. And then in addition to that, for data science specifically, there are so many blogs out there. Even myself, if I, need to brush up on a topic, I just search it and look up a blog that somebody wrote, right? Just so, okay, yeah, this is what it's about. And so, Towards Data Science is a great blog, but there really are so many. Whatever topic you're interested in, just Google it.
Totally agree with what both of you folks said. And Millie, you stole my line. I was going to say, if you're interested in something, just Google it. And just start somewhere, honestly, especially, if you're someone who's younger and maybe some of these things might seem really daunting to you, you don't understand the language, just start Googling and start somewhere. Like, the internet is such an amazing tool. You can learn everything that you would learn in a degree online. I'm telling you, anything in your degree is probably also online. So definitely just Googling and finding what you're interested in. And if you learn a little bit about a topic and it sounds like something you're interested in, for example, wow, I saw this really cool thing online about a robot that was built. Let's look up how to build a robot and start from there. And then maybe, you see, oh, I have to learn how to code in this language. Okay, let's learn how to code in this language and just take it step by step. Especially programming, like Millie said, I'll be writing up something and then just Google whatever it is I'm looking for. It's the best tool, and literally all professionals in computer science use it. It's like the #1 tool. It's just the power of the Google search. So just starting somewhere.
Absolutely.
And just to add to what Morgan said too about tutorials, like there are so many tutorials out there for you to follow, and they are of all different levels, from beginners to intermediate to expert. That really, it's like one of the best ways, I think, is to learn. Going through a tutorial, following it, but actually doing it yourself, I think is a good way.
Those are amazing
sure.
answers. Sorry, did you want to go ahead? Did you have something to add to
No,
that?
I just said for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so we touched on technical skills. We touched on not so technical skills that you might need to excel in your career. Do you have to be a math genius or a whiz kid, a science whiz to get this kind of job?
Not at all.
No.
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 No. No.
Nope.
It's good background. Like I think if I were to look back, if you understand basic programming, concepts, like what's a loop, what's an if statement, if you understand that in any language, you can apply that to almost every technology out there. So, that basic understanding, sure, but it's not hard to gain that. And certainly even if you don't have that, it's not hard to learn.
For sure.
Absolutely.
I think that as you learn how to program, you learn the math you need to know. I think is a big thing. You don't need to be a math whiz going into it, because there's kind of a limited section of math, unless obviously you're using programming to solve mathematical equations, then that's kind of different. But if you're just doing, you're learning how to program, it will inherently teach you the math that you need to know, right? So if you already understand, for example, basic algebra, it'll help you a lot when you go and you learn about variables. But you don't need to know what a variable is to get started with programming. Like, for example, I teach university students, and a lot of the students who come to my programming classes have no math background. And so these tutorials will teach you what you need to know. Like, for example, the first thing I start with is what is a variable, right? Which is, I think, like high school level math. So you don't need to know much math at all, because you'll learn it as you learn how to code.
That's so encouraging. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
As for data science, math is important. Statistics in particular is quite important. But that being said, I would never define myself as a math whiz. So, like what Morgan said, I think you learn what you need to know for your field, and you can build from there. Having the foundations is also very important. Like what Melanie mentioned. But no, you don't need to be a math whiz to be a data scientist.
That's good to hear. I certainly am not, but so that's really good to hear. I was planning on going into that field. Are there any people that inspired you or helped you out along your way? Did you sort of lean on mentors that you found in your field? Were they maybe mentors that were outside of your field, friends, family, or coworkers? Who helped you along your way to success?
Okay, I can answer this first. So I completed my master's in data science computational linguistics program in 2020. So in that program, I would say there are a few professors that really inspired me and helped me through the program. And then in addition to that, because the program was so hard, I was very grumpy at home. So, I really want to shout out to my family who had to put up with me during that time. And, with their support, right, I managed to finish the program and, get this job at SAP. So, yeah, definitely some professors and also my family.
It takes a village. So
I think for me, the biggest mentors I've had have been just colleagues of mine at work, not necessarily a manager or anybody that was, trying to help me move up the ladder, so to speak, just my colleagues and coworkers. And I think having that support network of people that you work with and being able to talk to them about things you're challenged with and getting that support from them and perhaps career advice or, different ideas is wonderful. I've even had the opportunity for, people to reach back to me that I used to work with. To give me, hey, there's a great career opportunity where I am now. Maybe you could make a flip or, something like that. So, those relationships are very important. So not just with people that you work with today, but going forward in the future, when you all leave and spray out and go to different companies, stay in contact with people because, one of those companies might be your next job. You never know.
Absolutely. LinkedIn is your friend. So,
that's right.
Morgan.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely family's a big one. Like Millie mentioned, some of these, if you do decide to pursue a degree, they're not easy. So definitely having that support has been a huge help. And two, kind of like Melanie said, I think my biggest, I guess, mentors and people who have really helped me get through both the career side of things and on the educational side of things have just been people who I've worked with, who have inspired me, right? Peers who are in the same program as I, and then also people who have been in extracurriculars I've joined, people from, different jobs that I've had, who I'm still in touch with today, like years later, people who I was, working with years ago. I'm still in touch with them. It's so important to stay in touch with those people who made an impact when you were working with them, because if you stay in touch, they'll keep making an impact on you past that. Kind of like Melanie said, like people will reach out to you when they think of different job opportunities, and even like volunteering events like this. Somebody who I consider a mentor sent this over to me. So just keeping in touch with people too, that really helped you get where you are today as well.
So it sounds like there's a lot more relationship building than I would necessarily think in computer sciences, and how important it is to really excel in the field that you're in, as you all obviously have. So that's also a really good thing to know for everyone. We are getting very close to the end. So I am going to ask you to very quickly tell me one cool thing about your job that most people don't know.
Okay, so cool thing about my job, most people don't know. I get to work on some super cool projects, 3D printing, different things. Like right now I'm working on like an R2D2 and programming that. So that's pretty cool.
Amazing. Cool.
I think for me, it was early in my career, the opportunity to travel. I think a lot of information technology companies, historically anyway, had a lot of, multinational and world travel. So, get to see the world, get to see the country, get to go to different places and learn a little bit along the way about different cultures, and how even in Canada, if you work in Toronto, it's very different from working out east, and that's different from working in Vancouver. So there's slightly different business environments everywhere you go. So that's been, maybe it's not that earth shattering, but it's something that's really great to know about working in information technology. You're not just stuck in your room coding all the time. You can do all kinds of things.
That is definitely a good thing to know. I think that's definitely the stereotype, and we want to get away from that. So.
And for me, in terms of data science, what kind of the cool thing that I do is so a lot of times, I work on projects that are trying to use data science to make some process more efficient, for example. And so along the way, I often learn more about other domains that, that I don't specialize in because I'm a data scientist. And the problem we're trying to solve is really oftentimes not something that I know about. So in my job, you oftentimes will learn more about other domains that you didn't think you would ever learn about in your education. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. All right, so I am going to end it a couple minutes early, but I want to thank every one of you for joining us today, and a huge thanks to all three of you, our wonderful mentors, for sharing your time and experiences with us. And thank you all for watching us today. We do have more sessions happening on Thursday and Saturday, so be sure to plan what sessions you want to attend, and we'll see you then. So thanks again, everyone. And Dawn, whenever you want to stop the live recording, go right ahead.